What's up NBA fans, Dom2K on the mic, and before this video starts, I want to make some corrections on mistakes I've made in previous videos. Now, if you want to skip this section, I'm going to make this very clear. There is a time code right on the screen for you to do so. You don't have to watch this part, but I have to correct some of my mistakes and not run from them. After these videos were posted, people notified me that I either misspoke or just plain got the story wrong, and I wanted to correct those so people know the true stories and we're not all walking around misinformed because I was being careless. First off, Glenn Davis did not get his nickname of Big Baby from the incident with KG like I said. This was just an honest mistake on my part, and that was the only story I'd ever heard my entire life. And because it sounded so reasonable, there was just no reason for me to verify it since the video wasn't about Davis. In any case, Glenn Big Baby Davis actually got his nickname from his youth league coach. He was 9 years old, 5'6", and 160 pounds. That is gigantic. Davis says the name just stuck with him throughout his career. There's other stories about LSU, and if you go actually look how he got the nickname, there's pretty much a lot of theories out there, but this is one I found from him. So either way, I just want to clarify, he did get his nickname before the Kevin Garnett incident, but there's no question in my mind that incident helped it stick out even more, so I'm still taking that L either way. Second, I made a very careless and amateur mistake when talking about Wilt Chamberlain in my MVP video. This one I knew, but I just misspoke on. Wilt was not a Laker in 1962. Don't let anybody ever tell you that. When speaking about why he didn't win MVP, I brought up that the Lakers had a record only 4 games worse than the Celtics that year. See, what had happened was, I honestly just confused myself in the moment while I was talking because I was looking at Wilt Chamberlain's scoring average right next to the Lakers record, and my mind just joined the two together. I was well aware that Chamberlain was a warrior back then. That was just a combination of carelessness and late night recording, and sorry for that, that's 2 L's for me. Finally, I'm a Celtics fan, so I take a huge L for this one. In my KG video, I said 2013 was the last year of the Big Three. Again, I just misspoke in the moment of recording, forgetting that Ray left us in that offseason. It was really the last year of KG and Pierce being with us, which is kind of what I meant, but I was careless and worded it wrong. Minor error, but I get multiple L's for that one since I'm a Celtics fan. In the future, I'm just going to make sure that anytime I say her name or date, I follow it up just to be 100% sure. These were just pure carelessness on my part, and I gotta be better than that. But as I've learned, the cover-up is always worse than the actual crime, so I'm being a man and admitting to my careless mistakes. That being said, enjoy the video. Welcome to my new video series called Cases for the Greatest of All Time, or just Insert Player's Case for GOAT. This will be a short video series where I lay out the cases for players who have an argument to be called the greatest player of all time. Being that this list is confined to a small amount of players, it won't last too long, but I think it should be made to pay respects to players who might not get it due to the fact that Michael Jordan is almost the unanimous choice for the GOAT title. Because I'm using the entirety of these players' basketball careers, this might seem like a biography at times, but my main focus is to highlight what they achieved in the portions of the careers that I speak about, just so that you get why they have the right to be in the GOAT argument. Before I get into the video, I want to lay this disclaimer out there because people go nuts over a topic anytime it involves being called the greatest. These videos are not meant to definitively say who the GOAT is, rather I'm just laying out their case for if you were going to call them the greatest of all time. These videos will take into account their NBA careers, college careers if they had one, and I'll even mention what they did in high school if those are situations that need to be highlighted. This video will be based around, in my opinion, one of the more underrated legends, Kareem Abdul Jabbar, formerly known as Lou Alcindor. He does get recognition for being great, but I think fans severely underrate his case to be called the greatest player ever. And after this video, you might at least question if Michael Jordan is the greatest by the big margin you've been hearing about your whole life. So let's start with his high school career because in this case, there's definitely some things worth noting. Oh, and for the duration of this video, I will refer to him as Kareem Abdul Jabbar. I won't be using Lou Alcindor at all. From the day Jabbar was born, there was just something different about him, and I mean that quite literally because he was born a 12-pound, 22.5-inch baby, so there was no surprise that he was 6'8" and able to dunk by only the 8th grade. These physical attributes set the stage for how he'd be able to manhandle the competition in high school and beyond, as he did some pretty historic things. For starters, in only the 10th grade at Power Memorial High School in New York, Jabbar averaged 19 points and 8 rebounds while leading his team to an undefeated record. When he finally did lose, it came against DeMatha Catholic High School. He had been averaging 30 points but was held to 16 that day. It didn't matter much though because by that point it had been 3 years since Kareem lost a game. By the time his high school career was over, Jabbar led Power Memorial on a 71-game win streak, a 79-2 overall record, and he had won 3 straight New York Catholic championships. And on top of that, he had amassed personal stats of 2,067 points to go with 2,002 rebounds. Both were New York records. These incredible feats earned him the nickname the Tower from Power. But Jabbar wasn't finished here, because his astounding high school resume was just the appetizer to what he'd go on to achieve. Kareem attended UCLA from 1965 to 1969, where he would achieve amazing records, some of which are still standing today. Unfortunately, when he first got there, the freshman rule was in effect, meaning he would have to start with the freshman team instead of going straight to varsity. But there was no question where he belonged, and he would prove it during the team's first preseason game. On November 27, 1965, Jabbar would go on to score 31 points, pull down 21 rebounds, and block 7 shots en route to a 15-point victory over the varsity squad. He went on to average 33 and 21 as his team went 21-0. He was an absolute man amongst boys. The dominance did not wane once he was able to transition to varsity basketball either. Under legendary coach John Wooden, Kareem would lead the Bruins to an 88-2 record over 3 years, and those 2 losses had some special circumstances I'll cover in a moment. First, we'll note that he scored 56 points in his first varsity game and would later score 61. His first season was remarkable as he notched averages of 29 points and nearly 16 rebounds on 66% field goal shooting. But back to the only 2 losses of his college career for a moment. On January 20th, 1968, the first ever nationally televised college game was taking place, which many referred to as the game of the century. Kareem's Bruins were matched against Elvin Hayes' Houston Cougars. The important thing here is that shortly before this game, Jabbar was missing time with a scratched left cornea that hadn't fully healed. Due to this, he was held to only 15 points compared to Hayes' 39 points and 15 rebounds, so he pretty much got dominated as the Bruins' 47-game win streak was snapped on live TV. However, the glory from this was short-lived because with Kareem healthy, the Bruins would go on to stomp the Cougars in the semifinals of the NCAA tournament 101-69, leaving no questions about, well, anything really. The only other loss he suffered in college was in a low-scoring stall game to USC. If you didn't know, there was no shot clock in those days, so a team could technically hold the ball as long as they wanted to before they tried to score. Due to this, the Bruins lost 46-44, but this all goes to pretty much prove that the only way to beat Kareem's team in those days were to catch him hurt or exploit a now closed loophole in the game. Let's wrap up his college career. For these few years, he was twice named the Player of the Year, was a first-team All-American 3 times, won 3 NCAA championships, was honored as the most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament 3 times, which is a record that still stands today, and finally, he became the first ever Naismith College Player of the Year in 1969. Because of everything I just listed, Jabbar is seen by many as the greatest college player of all time. And if that's not enough, the NCAA banned the dunk from college basketball for 9 years, mainly because of how Kareem dominated using it. For this reason, many refer to it as the Lou Alcindor rule, which was his name in college. I don't know about you guys, but when any league bans something because you're dominating so much using it, I think we can safely say you were the greatest in it. And that pretty much wraps up his college story. Now, your jaw has probably hit the floor at least twice in this video if you didn't know some of the things I've told you about Jabbar's career pre-NBA, but in case you're one of those people who aren't impressed by anything that doesn't happen in the NBA, don't worry, I've got you covered. Kareem got drafted by the Bucks, who were only going into their second year of existence, and his career got off to a beautiful start. He led the Bucks to a 29-game improvement over the previous season. In doing this, he averaged almost 29 points and 15 rebounds, which was more than enough to land him Rookie of the Year award. It took him almost no time to get his first serious piece of NBA hardware, as in his sophomore season, the Bucks would acquire legend Oscar Robertson. This was enough to push them over the top, as Kareem would go on to average 31 points and 16 rebounds as a second-year player. This led the Bucks to 66 wins, and at the time, a record 20 straight wins. This would be enough to get Kareem his first MVP award, and he would follow that up by leading Milwaukee to a 12-2 playoff record that included a sweep of the Baltimore Bullets in the finals, where he would also get his first finals MVP. Oh yeah, let's not also forget to mention that in that season, he led the league in point total with 2,596 of them. Let's just pause there for a moment. Could you imagine a player being drafted in the NBA today, winning MVP and Finals MVP in his second year, along with a 30 point per game scoring average? That's pretty ludicrous, it just doesn't happen today. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for Kareem, he would not go on to win another championship in Milwaukee. Instead, he would just go on to be a repeat scoring champion, pick up a total of 3 MVP awards in the span of 5 years, and just overall remain one of the highest producing players in the league, if not the highest producing one. By 1974, Jabbar had figured that living in the Midwest just did not fit his cultural needs, so he requested a trade to either New York or the Lakers. Los Angeles is where most people know Kareem from, and with good reason, because he wasted absolutely no time building the legacy that we know of today. He kicked his LA career off averaging nearly 28 points a game, leading the league in rebounding and block shots with 17 and 4.1 a game respectively, and he led the league in minutes played. When we say superhuman today, we normally think of LeBron, but Kareem was the original superhuman, or maybe it was actually Will Chamberlain. We'll get to that later. Oh, and I also forgot to mention his 1,111 defensive rebounds for that season is still standing 41 years later as the NBA's single season record. But wait, there's more. This season marked the last time anyone had 4,000 or more points, rebounds, and assists in a single season. I made a video mentioning that it almost seemed like a prerequisite that you needed to be on a top team to win MVP, but these feats were so incredible, Jabbar picked up his 4th MVP award without making the playoffs. Could Kareem's first season in Los Angeles be the greatest season of all time by any player? It's definitely in the contention. For the next 3 seasons, the Lakers were up and down in terms of their improvement, but Kareem was the one constant as he continued to dominate the league and picked up his 5th MVP award with 13 years left in his career. But as we all know, when you're as great as Kareem, you need to do more things and win more rings to validate it in most people's eyes. Well, it's a good thing he played in Los Angeles, right? Because for some reason, the greatest players ever just seem to drop into the lap at some point every decade. In 1979, the Lakers got their hands on Urban Magic Johnson, opening the door to one of the most successful dynasties of all time, as the Lakers would get the luxury of dominating yet another decade. During the 1980s, the Lakers, led by Jabbar and Johnson, would go on to appear in 8 NBA Finals, winning 5 of them. The first year Johnson was drafted, Kareem would pick up his record 6th MVP award, a record again still standing today even with all the great players that have passed through since then. In this stretch of success, Kareem would go on to pick up his 2nd and last Finals MVP award. Now, to be honest, I could go on forever with stories and situations from the Lakers dynasty run, but I might as well trademark this term. That could be its own video. Since we're talking about Kareem's case to be called the greatest of all time, let's just go ahead and encapsulate Kareem's career with some amazing facts. First off, he would go on to play 20 years in the NBA. He says that he would have never been able to play that long without one thing: yoga. And when you look at his stats, the only season that you could truly call disappointing would be his last one. And even then, I couldn't really expect much else other than 10 points and 4 rebounds, could you? And they still made the finals that year, so whatever. Speaking of his playoffs, we can't leave that out. He put up some of the most gorgeous averages in playoff seasons, but when you isolate his Milwaukee years, you really see what kind of beast he was. In 5 playoff seasons with the Bucks, Jabbar averaged nearly 30 points and 17 rebounds, shooting 51%. As a rookie, he averaged 35 points in his first experience with the playoffs. In that same year, he also solidified himself in the top 5 rookie single-season scoring leaders. Let's look at his NBA achievements as a whole, because seeing them on one page could give you a new respect for what he accomplished. 6 championships that included a repeat, 2 Finals MVPs, a record 6 MVPs, Rookie of the Year, 19-time All-Star, which is also a record that still stands today, 10 All-NBA First Team selections, 5 All-Defensive First Team selections, 2-time scoring champion, 4-time NBA block leader, the league rebounding champion in 1976. He's the Bucks all-time leading scorer, and as I was saying, he's the NBA's all-time scoring leader with 38,387 points, which is still almost 9,000 in front of the next active NBA player, Dirk Nowitzki. Most field goals made, and most minutes played in NBA history. But wait, there's more. I know for a fact some of y'all were waiting to kill me for forgetting to mention his unstoppable skyhook. Very few players have patented a move that was as dominant as this. LeBron has his chase down, Hakeem had the dream shake, MJ had his fadeaway, but out of all of those, the one you never see a player try to consistently duplicate is the skyhook, because it's that hard to do correctly. Kareem first tried the skyhook when he was 9 years old, and although he missed, there was just a feel for it, and that feel turned into one of the most unguardable moves this league has ever seen. You want to know the deadliest thing about this move? Is that you knew it was coming. You knew Kareem was going to do it. It was his signature, for crying out loud. But guess what? It did not matter what you knew. You still couldn't stop it. That move has been used so many times by this man, you could see a blank figure performing the move and you still know exactly who it is. That skyhook is just the icing on the cake of greatness that Kareem provided the world with for over 2 decades. And so, there you have it. If you're ever in a debate with your friends about who the greatest player of all time is, and you happen to think it's Kareem, you can use a lot of what I just presented in this video to build a very strong case. When you look at the numbers from every year of his career, the records he set, the competition he dominated, the awards he won, to be honest, it's almost kind of difficult to understand why the gap between him and Jordan is so wide when people talk about the greatest of all time. I will admit that Kareem's greatness is very stat heavy, meanwhile many people agree that Jordan's greatness exceeded stats, which is very true. Either way, when you look at what he did at every level of the game, you can make a strong case for Kareem being the greatest basketball player of all time, because it's not every player's job to transcend the game the way Jordan did. Kareem had a job that was to play basketball, and he did that better than most players will ever dream to do. I want to reiterate that the point of these videos is not to say who the greatest player of all time is. I'm simply laying out some factors that strongly suggest they could be called the greatest of all time, and you wouldn't be wrong. This is the first episode of this series, and from where I'm sitting, I can only see this argument being made for about 6 to 7 more players, and probably only 6 being honest. Who do you think those players are? Let me know in the comments, and you'll find out when I open up the next case for the greatest player of all time.